was worried when I walked in I was going to be cold. Oh, no, it's just brings the temperature.
Give me sound check.
Hi there, Mike.
Yeah.
Check, check.
Okay, we're almost there. Check in.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started. So good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Reading area, I would like to welcome you to the Candidates Forum for Shasta County Clerk. My name is Susan Morris Wilson, and I will be your moderator this evening. The responsibilities of the county clerk vary from county to county. So you always have to be careful when you're looking at the county clerk's job to make sure that you get the right county and figure out what that county actually does. In this county, the major things that are done by the county clerk include marriage licenses and applications and ceremonies, include some various business regulations, passport acceptance agent, and of course voter registration, elections, and polls. So this isn't a one job, it's a multi-person job. In addition, the county clerk has to work fairly closely with other people in the county. So keep all that in mind as we go through our questions and so on. Now, let me introduce our candidates. That's probably the best thing to do first. On my right, I have Kathy Darling Allen. She is the incumbent and the current Shasta County clerk. And next to her, Bob Holsinger, who is a retired utility manager. So thank you both for being here. Before we get too far into this, I want to make sure that you have all your dates in mind for this election. So the election is the 7th of June. I think everybody's got that piece. The county clerk's office, in case you don't know where it is on Market Street at the corner with Placer. Some dates I want you to remember are your voter registration should be completed, if you haven't done it already, by 5/23. That's March 23rd. That's a couple weeks away. So remind people, May, that's right, May. So make sure that people do get that done. Now, if you don't get it done by then, you do have the option of conditional or same-day registration, and that can be completed between that May date and the election date. See, I'm getting nervous because the county clerk is right here, and she's going to correct me when I get all this wrong. You know, another good place to go to register to vote is registertovote.ca.gov. You know, and that, if you have never been to that site, it's a great site. You can just track all kinds of things. You can get all kinds of information. So if you like to entertain yourself some night at 4 o'clock in the morning when you can't sleep, I have a few of those. Go to Register to Vote, California, gov.gov. A reminder that California is one of those states that mails all the ballots. The ballots will be mailed 5/9/2022. Early voting sites are available from 5/9 through 6/6/22. Your vote by mail ballots, if you mail them in, must be postmarked on or before 6/7/2022. Okay? The election is certified in the county on the 7th of July, and then subsequently certified by the Secretary of State later in July. I think the 15th is the date that I have in mind. So with all the business out of the way, I want to remind you that the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. The League encourages informed and active citizen participation in government and influences public policy through education and advocacy. That's what we're doing here tonight. We're doing a little bit of education and a little bit of advocacy. And people say, okay, Susan, what advocacy are you doing? Our advocacy is we want every single person to vote. Every person who's eligible to vote, we want that person to register to vote, and we want the person to use that right to vote. That's where we're coming from. So you will not find us endorsing any candidate for office. And we don't even endorse candidates for nonpartisan offices. Okay, we are a nonpartisan organization. Tonight, the procedure that we're going to use is fairly simple. The order of speaking has been determined by lot, but we changed it, which happens sometimes. So if I may call you Bob, Bob's going to go first. And if I may call you Kathy, Kathy's going to go second. They have 3 minutes to make an opening statement. Their statements any comments they make will be timed. And there you see all the signs that we have to keep people in line. There's a, let's see, there's a 1-minute card, which is green, a 30-second card, which is yellow, and a red card for stop. Each candidate will make an initial presentation of 3 minutes about their background, areas of concern, reasons for running for office, whatever they really want to do. Questions will be directed at the candidates in rotating order. So this gets a little bit complicated, and so you get to answer 2 questions in a row on an ongoing basis. Generally, we'll have the questions answered in 1 minute. I've asked the candidates to signal to me if they feel that the question is complicated enough and they need more time to just hold up their fingers and say 2 minutes, and we'll just change it to 2 minutes for both of you. So you have to do it at the beginning of the question. And then at the end, the candidates will have an opportunity to make a closing statement of 3 minutes. Generally, we can get in about 20 questions in the time that we have. So we will run until about 7:15. And I think that that's about all the time that we need to be sitting on these very comfortable chairs. Yes. You'll see Mike over here, Mike Flanagan and his buddies. And they are setting up a live stream, so this will be live streamed. There are other people in here live streaming, so thank you for getting this out to the public. I think it's great. That's part of our education system. In addition, we'll have the stuff posted on...
She's not really aware of this, and it's live streaming to SCAC TV at Shasta Community Access Channels. And it's also there, but you'll be able to find it all over the place. But that's where we're streaming into right now.
Right. Last night there were, I think, at least 6 live streamings going on. So, and then we will post a video for use as well. With all that, be sure and have your questions filled out. You should, if you need a piece of paper and a pencil, hold it up and we will get you the question. I already have many questions. Thank you very much. There are several league members in the back that are willing to get your questions. One of the things that you'll have to remember about questions is that we're really careful with the questions because we want the questions to be appropriate for both people. And Brian Caples is here today, and he can tell you that sometimes that's a little tricky when one of the people already has the job. You know, it is. So we will do our very best, but recognize that we're not going to accept questions that address just one person. We're going to do our best to make sure it's a question that both people can answer. So if you have asked a question like that, we've probably already dropped it in the trash can, so you want to think about that and rewrite the question. We appreciate your attendance tonight. I'm hoping both candidates will stay afterwards for a few minutes to talk to people, because I think that that's really important. I have my 2 timekeepers up here, Donna and Patty, and with that, I think that we're going to get started. So I am going to start with you, Bob.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here. My name is Bob Holsinger. I ask if you would please, we want to start with our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. If you would please stand and remove your caps. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you. Thank you all.
You're on the clock, Bob.
I'm not sitting down, so.
Don't sit down.
I'm Bob Holsinger. I'm running for clerk's office now. I've watched 5 election cycles throughout Shasta County as part of Election Integrity Project California. I was a volunteer observer in 2018 in the primary, and went from there to the 2018 general election and the fall election, and then went to the 2020 election. Then I've had 2 recalls now with Governor Newsom and District 2 recalls recently. So I've been in Kathy's office. She's been a wonderful host as far as letting us have access, answering questions, doing tours, and I appreciate that. I want people to know that we have a professional relationship and a personal relationship in that sense. I'm not here to throw rocks tonight. I am here to succeed in running for the county clerk's office. I believe that I've seen some things that are documented that needs to change. One of them is I don't like the Dominion name, the Dominion voting machine name. It isn't in our software. It's throughout the machines. They're on lease and they're at the registrar's office. And I'm very concerned about that as far as the county. There's a lot of folks in the county that can't stand Dominion voting machines just because the mention of the name causes division. And I want to bring our county back together. I'm also very concerned with the poll workers training. 2.5 hours to become a poll worker when you've never been a poll worker before is a challenge. And I want to make sure that that is addressed. Voter rolls are another concern I have. I know that Kathy and her staff are doing their best to do and make sure that they're accurate. I want to revisit that and see what the real story is and what we can do with that. So those are some things that I've been doing. My leadership team, I spent 25 years as a manager with a large utilities, a couple of utilities I worked with, where I was actually building $750 million power plants. That's $750 million power plants. I was a plant manager and asset manager during that time. I was hiring people, training people, and then taking these power plants to operations. I believe that leadership, where I was looking for team efforts and making accessible teams, will work in the registrar's office and in the clerk's office as well. I thank you for your opportunity, and I'll turn this over to Ms. Darling.
Before we turn it over to Kathy, I want to point out to you that the League of Women Voters is a patriotic organization. We just have certain processes that we follow. One of our processes is that we do not say the Pledge of Allegiance. So Bob and I worked out this system of doing this tonight so that we could meet your needs, but still be respectful to the needs of the League of Women Voters. So thank you very much for participating in that. Kathy?
Good evening. I am Kathy Darling Allen. I am your Shasta County Clerk and Registrar of Voters. I have held this position since 2004. I grew up back east. I grew up in Washington, D.C., where my hometown news every day in the newspaper was what was going on in the White House. So I have a very lifelong interest in politics and in how government works. Both my parents worked for the government. My dad worked for the D.C. public government, and then my mom was a librarian at a community college right outside of Washington. And she participated in her professional association. She was president of the Maryland Library Association, and she would take people to the Capitol and walk them through the halls, show them where their members' offices were, give them tips on how to lobby to advocate for or against legislation that was before Congress. And so I have a very profound love of politics and of government, and I am very pleased and lucky. I feel really lucky to be able to do this work every day. It means a lot to me. I think I'm going to leave it there because there's going to be a lot of questions.
We hope there are going to be a lot of questions. Unluckily, a lot of the questions are exactly the same, but you get the first question, so you stay right there. Okay. There are a lot of questions about drop boxes. So I'm going to kind of whip through those, and they might be fairly quick. We'll see how that goes. Do we have enough drop boxes in Shasta County? How many do we have? Where are they? How are they working?
So the drop box program in Shasta County, we started in 2012 when we installed the first drop box in front of our office. We quickly added a drop box in front of Reading City Hall, which is our most popular still box, because it's in a drive-through, right? It's in that roundabout in front of on Cypress there in Reading. We also have a drop box in Anderson and in Shasta Lake. And in the last couple of years, we've also added temporary boxes that we install in grocery stores. Holiday Market's been a great partner with us. We're also going to have boxes in Raley's up on Lake Boulevard this year. So for the September countywide election, which is the recall of Governor Newsom, we had 16 drop boxes. And it's a program that works really well, and we're really pleased with it. There have been concerns about the post office, and so this is a way for folks to return their ballot in a secure way. There's chain of custody. Only our staff has access to those boxes, of course. There are tamper evidence seals on every box, and they're put, when the ballots are removed from that box, they're put into a container with seals, delivered back, yada, yada.
Perfect. Same question, Bob.
From my standpoint, I have real concerns about drop boxes. They are in the county. Some of them are observed and some of them are unobserved boxes. And what that means is they're observed by others. If you look at the holiday market, who's observing that box? It's right there at the checkout counter. Is the checkout clerk observing it? Or are you and I, as we purchase our groceries, observing it? It's inside, it's not outside, as is in front of the registrar's office or in front of City Hall. There's a new movie that just came out this week And that is a challenge where they watched people stuff those boxes. And it was a problem with the swing states, and I don't want us to become a swing county. And so I'm not a big fan of drop boxes. So that's all I'm going to say about those at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question follows along pretty much the same lines. Do you support removing drop boxes in order to stop ballot stuffing? And is there another way to deal with those issues? You know, the monitoring issues, et cetera.
One of the challenges we have, we all get vote by mail ballots. That's a state mandate. They're sent out to all registered voters in California. I'm a big proponent of voting in person. I like to be able to go to the voting machine, take my ballot and put it through the machine myself and see it was counted. I know where that ballot resides. I know when it was voted. If I put it in that drop box, it's going to sit there for up to 48 hours, maybe 72 hours before it's picked up by at least 2 people in chain of custody. Is very secure in Shasta County, I'll give you that. But I'm also looking at that from the standpoint of security. Once that ballot makes its way back to the registrar's office, there's a whole number of people, from 8 to 10 people, that are going to touch your ballots, and you don't know them, and they're going to do their best that they can to vote those ballots, but it's going to take a period of time to do that. So I'd rather put it through the machine myself and not worry about ballot drop boxes.
Thank you. Kathy? Same question. Do you support removing drop boxes in order to stop drop box / ballot box stuffing? And is there a way to monitor those votes?
So ballot stuffing or ballot harvesting, sometimes as it's called, is legal in California. We may not like that, but that's the law and that's the fact. What that means is that somebody can go to a nursing home or some other place and collect ballots for folks and return them on their behalf. That is legal and allowed. I do not support removing drop boxes. It's been a very successful program for us. As I'm sure everyone in this room is aware, Shasta County is a primarily Republican county, and for years and years, Republicans are the ones who wanted to vote by mail and took advantage of vote by mail. In the year 2000, we had 1,020 people in Shasta County who permanently voted by mail. Now we're over 80,000. That's voter choice. Those are voters making that choice. We have experienced in the last 2 years a tremendous amount of bad information around the elections field, and it's really unfortunate. It's just really unfortunate, the bad information that's out there in the world. It's packaged really nicely. It looks so slick, and it is sometimes, I have not seen this movie, so I can't comment on 2,000 Mules. I assume that's what you're talking about. But there are other productions I have seen that are super slick and full of bad information.
Okay, next question. Do you support voter ID? Talk to me about voter ID.
So 5 years ago, I would have said no. We don't need voter ID. And there's a long story why I think that's true, or I thought that was true. We are now in a situation, we find ourselves in a situation in our country where people have been presented with a lot of information. Swing states, battleground states are having a terrible time. I had the opportunity earlier this week to talk to some officials from Maricopa County, Arizona. And these are folks who still have police protection at home a year and a half after the presidential election. It's a very distressing time. So whatever we can do to increase confidence in elections, I am for. If it's voter ID, then I'm not going to tell you that I think that's a terrible idea. Will that pass in California with a Democratic supermajority in Sacramento? That's a whole other discussion, and quite frankly, the county clerk is not a policymaker. I have ministerial duties. I don't make policy as far as that kind of stuff is concerned.
Thank you. Bob, same question?
From the standpoint of, do I like government-issued voter ID? Yes. Is it possible in the state of California at this point? California legislature said no, and the governor signed the bill. So we cannot show our valid IDs unless we're doing a conditional voter registration, and at that point you may have to prove who you are with your ID. But you and I go to the polls and offer your driver's license, they're not going to accept it. They're going to push back. So it is what it is. In the meantime, we have to rely upon voter signature verifications predominantly. And That's the best we can do. They've also de-watered that down from 5 different common structures on your signature down to 1. And in certain cases, you don't even have to have 1, for the laws allow voters without ID signatures to be voted anyway without signature voting IDs. So that's what's happening in California. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay right there. This is from someone in the audience. More than 2 years ago, I took up residency in another state. I have dual residency, but I presume that means that you go back and forth between 2 states, but took up voter rights outside of California. Since that time, I've received two ballots. What will each of you do to fix problems like this? Or what is going on today to fix problems like this? Bob, you go first.
I know in Shasta County, when our ballots go out here next week, and they're going to come out, there's going to be a lot of folks that get ballots that their family members are deceased, or their children have moved and got married and moved out of the house. Maybe they're in college. Others have bought a new home. They're in the home, and lo and behold, the old owner ballots show up on their doorstep. Those kind of things, I'm finding more and more of that as I go around the county talking to people. I'm getting so many notices and so many people come up to me about 1 ballot, 2 ballots. I've seen even 5 ballots. That's why I want to look at the voter roll when we're done. When we're done with this election and I'm in the clerk's office, I expect to go look through the voter rolls with the staff and figure out what we can do to make sure it's accurate as possible. Thank you.
Kathy?
So, I guess I wonder why that voter didn't send it back or call us and say, hey, I have voting rights in another state. And so, okay, so please follow up with us because we don't want that to happen, of course. However, California does not participate in ERIC. ERIC is a regional data collection service. The state of Arizona participates, as does both Washington and Oregon and Nevada. If we participated, and this is not something I can control, unfortunately, it would allow us to match data across state lines, which would be really helpful. But voter file maintenance is something that we do literally every day. But if voters receive ballots, more than 1, or for someone who used to live at your apartment and you don't send it back to us, how are we going to know? It would really be helpful if folks would follow the instructions that are on the voter information guide. And you should have those already. And on the inside cover, it asks for you to please return that to your mail carrier if the person who it's addressed to is no longer at that address. That way we can remove those folks from the rolls.
Thank you. And this is a follow-up question that sort of duplicates this, but it gives you time both to talk more about it. So do you support voter roll cleanup?
Again, I have someone in my office, that's all they do, 40 hours a week, is update voter registration records as we get information. So we get information from a variety of third-party sources. When you go to the DMV and get a new driver's license or renew your driver's license or buy a new car and you have a new address, the DMV sends us that information. So we update records from DMV information, we update records from change of address information we get from the post office as well. It's not a airtight system. As humans, we are inherently imperfect. We cannot create a perfect system for either voter registration or for voting. We do our very best to plug every hole we know about and follow up on every hole we can. But to expect a 100% perfect process is really not possible.
Thank you. Same question.
And I'm not a magic man either. I understand the process of the voter rolls. It's not easy. We have people that die. They die out of state, they move out of state, they pass away, but they're still registered in Shasta County. There's no requirement to send a death certificate to the clerk's office. So how do we find this out? This is a big challenge, and that's why it's going to take a top-down all the way through the register's roll. When we talk about weekly and daily looking at the register's roll, the voter roll, that could be as simple as just when somebody registers to vote. I just changed the voter roll. I just updated the voter roll. Or if I get a death certificate, I could take someone off the register. Or if I get notified by someone sending a ballot back that they're no longer at that address, they can go into the inactive. Those are the kind of things when we update the voter roll, that's great. But we've got a problem where I believe personally that we're in arrears. We've got to catch up to that and clean this up a little bit more and make it, if that's the only thing we've got to clean up the best we can. Thank you.
Okay, hang in there. Do you happen to know how many fraudulent votes happen annually in Shasta County?
I have no idea. No idea. I would have to defer to my candidates.
Your
Ms.
partner
Darling?
here.
I would believe, and she probably will have a real tough time to give you a number as well, but that's up to her. She knows better than I do for sure. So, thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
So when I talk about voter fraud, the thing I always say is it systemic? No. Is it pervasive? No. Does it happen? Absolutely. Again, I can't create a perfect system. No one can. There's only one person who can create a perfect system, and he is no longer with us. How many incidents of voter fraud? In September of 2021, we made referrals of about 10 people to the district attorney's office to be investigated. And they did what they do. That didn't result in any prosecutions. We have had successful prosecutions here in Shasta County, and people have been convicted and fined. That's really the extent of the punishment that's happened, both here in the county, and we've also had prosecutions at the state level as well.
Thank you. Next question, and maybe we'll do 2 minutes on this question, ladies and gentlemen. We've talked a lot about different complications, the voter rolls, ballot boxes, stuffing, stuff like that. What for you each would be the 3 things that you would do to change the problems that you see today? If money wasn't an issue, if government wasn't an issue, if people weren't the issue, I mean, what could make a more perfect voting system? Really, seriously.
Well, money would be great.
Money's good.
Money is resources are always a challenge. We have been very fortunate here in Shasta County, and I say that because our Board of Supervisors has provided us with funds and generally sufficient funds to conduct elections without great difficulty. Some counties in California do have great difficulty funding elections. So money is a great answer, but it's not really a panacea. I have said many times, it's not Kathy's House of Elections, right? This is a government agency. But if it gets to be Kathy's House of Elections, then I get to make the rules. And so then I'm not mailing ballots to the people who don't want them. That's, right off the top. We have a core group of voters in Shasta County, between 10 and 15,000 people. Every countywide election, they go to the polls and vote. They tell us with their feet what they want. And it's a waste of taxpayer dollars to mail them a ballot. And I know that. But the law says we have to mail every voter a ballot, and so that's what we do. But I would love to not have to do that anymore. I would also try and change the state's direction. Right now, in several years ago, 2016, the state passed a new law called the Voters' Choice Act that creates vote service centers, just like what they do in Colorado, if you're familiar with that. What that would do, if we implemented that in Shasta County, would be we would reduce the number of polling places from 59 in this election coming up, down to about 15. That's not what Shasta County wants, and I know that. I'm very aware of that. And unfortunately, I think the governor signing that bill last September that makes us mail a ballot to every voter, I think that's the beginning of this being mandatory in the state. I'm going to continue to work hard to push against that and push back against that in Sacramento, because I know that's not the right way to vote for Shasta County and for a lot of the smaller rural counties around, especially the North State.
Thank you. Bob?
Again, my key thing is the name Dominion. That is foremost on my mind, because I get it all the time talking to people. And it's really interesting for me when I go out around the area and talk to people, whether it's in Happy Valley, it's in wherever it is, somewhere in Shasta here, wherever it is. I'm finding that all the time, Dominion, 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 because they've heard that name on the news. I can't say up or down on if it was fraudulent using Dominions or not. I don't know. I've been invited to see these machines. I've watched the accuracy testing on it. There's been a little bit of problem where one time there was 5 seals that were on the wrong doors on 5 different machines that we found. And that was in a recent election. And I still never found what that answer was on why those happened, because those seals are numbered when we do the accuracy testing and logged. That said, let's put that aside. Voter rolls, we talked about that, that's a challenge. Another thing I'm very concerned with is when I go to the polls and do observations with my team, we had 70 people out in the polls during the District 2 recall elections. 70 of them. Some of them were ours at Elected Integrity, and some of them were not, that I had never met these people before. And they're out there as citizens, because any citizen in California may observe elections and may ask questions and may get answers according to our Voter Rights Act, which is in your voter guide, by the way, that you got the other day. That said, we also have to be respectful of the voting process. If you ask too many questions or disrupt that process, you can be asked to leave. So make sure you understand that as well. Another problem we have with, it's a challenge because trying to get observers in and keep quiet, you've got to be able to focus, because it's so easy to make a human error when you're ballot processing. There's a lot of works going on at the same time, and it's so easy to make an error. And so that's a challenge. We need to be respectful. And we've had some problems with the recent election where that was kind of out of control. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Hold
still
on.
up.
Hold
I don't
on.
get to sit down yet.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that, because people here may know more than I do, but I understand there are poll workers and there are observers. You have been an observer 5 elections, I heard you say. So what are the key things that we're looking for in an observer? What skills? What's the job about? Help us a little bit here. 1 minute, ladies.
Okay. Any citizen here can walk into a poll and say, I'd like to observe, my name is so-and-so, and I would like to just sit over here quietly and watch the poll process. And that's acceptable. With the organization I'm with, it's a 501c3 organization that I was with. I'm no longer with them any longer. They're a 501c3 nonpartisan organization. They've been in California now for 14 years. Over that period of time, they've trained in election code 1,400 volunteer observers to go throughout the state of California. They're also in Arizona, Nevada, and Arkansas doing the same thing. Not every state allows observers in the ballot process. They do. The biggest thing is we train on responsibilities. When you're in the polls and you're in the registrar's office watching ballot processing, you must be respectful and do not disrupt, or you may and you should be removed from that poll or removed from that office. This is a very difficult job to do, and we need to be respectful for that. So they're trained along that, but we're trained on election code. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kathy, that question?
So poll workers are hired by my office. They are strictly volunteers, but they do receive a stipend, either $100 or $125. They are provided with training, and they're the folks who have custody of the ballots and are allowed to touch the ballots, check voters in, have voters sign in, provide that voter with the ballot marking device, et cetera, and then help them use the scanner to scan their ballot. Poll observers, or observers generally, you don't have to be in a polling place, as Bob said, you can be in our office and observe, doesn't require any formal training from our perspective, although we have just this election for the first time provided training for observers, and we're providing tours for folks who want to be observers so that they can be educated on the front end to understand what they should be seeing and what they should be looking for. And we've always invited everybody with EIP to come to poll worker training as well if they want to see and understand what we teach our poll workers. We find the better educated observers are, the better the experience for everybody. It's an essential part of the process that really helps provide integrity to the process.
Thank you. So I was going to then ask a follow-up question and to say, tell me what poll workers do, but I think we got that, so we'll move on. I'd like to talk for just a minute about voting machines, because there are a lot of questions here about voting machines, and I've heard you say, Bob, that you don't like the name Dominion or don't like the machines. Talk to me about, let's take a couple minutes here, ladies, about the issue with voting machines. why do we have the voting machines that we have? How do we take care of them? How do we keep them safe? All those kinds of things, if you would, please.
Sure. At 7:45 on September 14th, 2021, at the Happy Valley Community Center, a voter walked into the precinct. That's 15 minutes before closing, and she was blind. We have county managers that act as field troubleshooters and support for our precincts, and so he was one of those rovers, is what we call them, and he was actually there to help the poll workers close up in case he had any questions. So he's the one who told me this story, and this was a really, I'm so thrilled that I can stand here and not cry and tell you the story, because the first time I read the email, I cried. It was just very touching. This person was in her 40s, had never voted privately or independently before. She had always had to have somebody help her mark her ballot. The poll workers were able to use that machine to have the ballot read aloud to her through headphones, and it's called an ATI. It's a little, looks like a video game controller, and she was able to mark and make her selections and cast her ballot without anybody helping her or interfering with the choices that she was making. She was crying, the poll workers were crying. It was a very amazing story. And interestingly, this is 21 years after the federal law passed, HAVA, the Help America Vote Act, that passed in 2002. That was the federal government's reaction to all the crazy stuff that happened in Florida in 2000. Remember the hanging chads and all that stuff, right? Well, part of that law mandates that anybody, any voter in the United States, be able to vote privately and independently. You have to have technology to make that happen. In addition, in California, the ballot is long, 2 pages, both sides for this election, right? That's 4 different pages. If we were to try and hand count that, it would take a long, long time to get results. So whether we use Dominion or one of the other 2 vendors that are available for use in California, we have to use some kind of technology in the precincts. It's going to happen.
Thank you. Bob?
Could you repeat that question real quick, please?
Since I sort of made it up based on this question, it's going to get a little tricky here.
Well, no,
but
we're talking about...
This is what we're talking about. We're talking about we have technology. How do we keep it safe? How do we use it well? How do we manage it in the off time? All those questions about technology.
Understood. Let's go back to the 2020 election, general election, November. In Shasta County, I believe there was in the process of 89,804 votes cast in Shasta County for the election. Of that, there were 28 contests in each ballot. Kathy's absolutely right. If you don't have some way in technology to count those ballots in a reasonable amount of time, I think you were doing a 1% recount. Ultimately, we ended up at what, about almost 3% by the time we're done? We thought it was 3 to 5 days and we'd be done with the 1% recount to verify that our ballots, it's a sampling of the ballots and figure out if we got the right persons and the right contests selected in the voting machines. I'm here to tell you the 1% worked, okay? The challenge of it is Dominion's been dragged through the mud all over this nation with allegations of fraud. I'm not using that 5-letter word tonight or any day. I don't do that. I'm here to say we need to heal our county. And the way we do that is we get one of the other 9 different types of voting machines approved by the state of California and bring it on board in Shasta County and get rid of the Dominion. So every ballot you put in the mail that we return back to the registrar's office goes through software upstairs. And is that software, is that Dominion too as well? It's Smartmatic, if I recall, is that right? No, it is Dominion. So every ballot that you do put in a voting machine or send in the mail is counted by Dominion software. Is it accurate? I'm here to tell you it probably is. Is it what we need in Shasta County? I don't believe we do. However, try to do human error on 89,000 ballots and come out with 100%. Good luck with that. That's not going to happen. So we need this type of machine. We need this stuff in there that we can trust and make sure that it's not on the internet and there's no way it can be validated. We go to the banks all the time and get our money in and out of the bank accounts. Do they make errors every now and then? Once in a while. But we catch them and they catch them and we fix those problems. We need digital optical scanning machines to help us with this. That's the only way we can continue forward.
So just as a follow-up question to that, how much are we talking about in terms of cost? How much does it cost to replace all those machines and all the software and I mean, both the hardware and the software, or augment the hardware, or,
These machines are not purchased, they're leased.
mhm.
And I believe it was somewhere north of, was 2.5 million or $3 million for 3 or 4 years, 5 years? 243,000? 243, and then you've got,
43.
and do you not also have technical support in addition to that? No. So there's technical support included. Now, we're doing these ballots coming out now. That had to be uploaded into each of these machines, and it had to be verified. So it's not real simple. The amended contract now went to 2025, and that was the one. What was that one, may I ask? Do you know offhand? Just the amended point to 2025. I'd have to look back at the contract on that. But we're into 2025 with these machines. However, they can be canceled by just picking up the phone and getting rid of them. And I'm just going to come pick them up. But I have to have another alternative because just getting rid of them is not the solution. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, Kathy, you want to answer that
Sure.
same question?
Well, yeah, so I have not done any research into what other vendors charge, so I don't know the answer to what it would cost to go to a new vendor, but Bob is mistaken, there's not 9 vendors. If you look at the list of voting technology on the Secretary of State website, one of those vendors that's listed on that website is Robus. Robus is a defunct company that has, if you click on the buttons and go and look at what each one of those companies do, there are many e-poll book companies listed on that same page, but there's only 3 voting system vendors that actually count ballots, and that is ours, obviously Dominion, HART, and ES&S are the 3 vendors that are certified to be used in California. The certification process is complicated and expensive and hard, and California elections are complicated. We have counties like Santa Clara with upwards of 15 plus languages they have to provide election material in. So every company that's certified in California has to be able to handle those crazy complicated ballots with character languages and all kinds of variables, ranked choice voting, etc. So being a vendor in California is tough.
Thank you. I think we'll move on from voting machines. This is a little bit of an off-the-wall question, and I'm not even sure how much you have to do with this, but we just finished redistricting. We did the census. We did redistricting. In California, redistricting is done statewide in one way, locally in another way. Do you feel that the redistricting of Shasta County is done in a unbiased way? Do you have any concerns about the redistricting in Shasta County?
So the Board of Supervisors has the authority to control the redistricting process, which is what they did. They asked us to be the pencil, essentially, to redraw lines, and they appointed an advisory commission, which we staffed in our office. And there is a website on, a page, I should say, on the county clerk website or the elections department website, which is 2 halves of the same whole, that documented that whole process. This is not, if I could go back 1.5 years, I would probably scream and yell about them hiring a consultant, because we really got squeezed in the middle in that process in a way that was not attractive or fun. And yeah. I won't be here in 10 years. I'm pretty sure I'll be retired. I'm 54 this year. I hope I'm not still working in 10 years, but if I am, I won't be doing the redistricting process. How's that?
So, Bob, can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Oh boy, oh boy. So we all know, well, maybe we don't all know. The state of California requires each county put together a volunteer redistricting committee from we the people. 5, I believe, out of the 15 members, I think there was, the 5 of them were appointed by the Board of Supervisors, if I recall. There's only 5 total?
Yep.
Okay, there are 5 total. Total in that committee, right? Yep. Okay, so they met several times over a period of time, looking to redistrict. They made map A and they made map B, and they submitted those, and there was comments back from the board, and they made some changes, and then out of clear air, without any input from the 5 members of the committee, here shows up map E. That's, I think, what Kathy just alluded to here with the individual. So then next thing you know, the Board of Supervisors, they didn't want A or B, they wanted E. So they turned around, we got an ordinance, and next thing you know, they passed map E, which redistricted me out of District 4 into District 3. And it took some of the candidates who were out of District 2 and moved them into District 1, which meant if they won the election for District 2, they'd have to move to get reelected. So that's the kind of thing. Sometimes we don't have control, but that's what happens with redistricting. And it's very sad that it happened in Shasta County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question that I want to ask is, how much does it cost to run an election or different elections? That's a slightly unfair question, but I thought you might know, have
No.
done some research on that.
No, it's pretty much public information. If you look at the Fair Political Practices Commission, it's filed every month, and the Registrar's Office has it as well through net filing. It shows all the donations and all your expenses. It's not cheap. I think if I were to ask that question and answer that question, I'd probably say 200 much. It's a lot of money. It really is. It's more money than I have. I know that, but we're getting there. We're working on it. And with generous donations, we're still above water. That's all I can tell you right now. We're not there yet.
Okay, but that actually wasn't the question I was after here. How much does it cost to run an election? Not you run the election, but the office to run the election.
That I cannot tell you. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Susan.
that's
one
what I
of those
was worried
questions.
about.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
a little bit.
It depends on the election too. If it's a general election, it's a lot more items and a lot more issues involved.
So what I hear you saying is it depends on how much is on the ballot and so on. Kathy, could you answer that question for us? Because I think this is an educational thing that's good for folks to know.
Sure. So there, as Bob said, it depends on the kind of election. If you look back at the governor's recall in September last year, I believe we came out at about $700,000 all told for that election. This election, I think, actually will be more because of the fact that the ballot's 2 cards, so that doubles our printing cost. Also, we're, just like everybody else, we're dealing with supply chain issues. We can't get paper for ballots and for envelopes. We've already ordered paper for November because we know it will take that long for them to make the paper to get it to us so we can print ballots. So that's going to probably be more expensive than we thought it was going to be. Talking about campaign expenses, in between ordering and actually getting a quote and placing the order for some paper products for my campaign, the price went up because paper is just a really hard thing to get right now.
Thank you. What do you think are the most important qualities and skills the county clerk should have? This is called a switch.
It is a switch, absolutely. The kind my grandmother would cut out in the backyard.
Yeah.
I think an even temper is really important. Willingness to do whatever you have to do to get the job done. People sometimes have the impression that government employment is all about punching a clock and working 40 hours exactly and going home and collecting that big fat paycheck because you're all pigs at the trough, right? Elections doesn't work that way. I can't call Sacramento and say, you know what, we're going to do this on Wednesday, we're just not ready. So people who work in my office miss baseball games and miss family dinners, and we get the job done because we have to. We don't have a choice. And we want to. We believe tremendously in the right to vote. It is the foundation, it's the base right that all other rights we enjoy as Americans is based on. And if we don't have someone who is neutral and nonpartisan conducting elections in every jurisdiction in the country, we're in trouble. And I think we all know we're in a little bit of trouble.
Thank you. Bob? Uh-huh.
I got to agree with a lot of that. I really do. Because, number one, when you walk through the clerk's office, your political affiliation's gone. It has to be. I don't care if you're wearing a shirt that has a candidate's name on it. No, it stays outside the office. It does not come in the office. You can't bring that in there. You have to be totally nonpartisan. It's no different than when I'm in election integrity. I walk into a poll, I walk in the office to watch ballot processing downstairs. It's got to be left at home. Check your partisanship at the door. I'm looking for leadership skills coming into the office. It's not a matter of walking into the office and say, you, I don't need you anymore. That's not what it's about. there's a lot of resources in there that are very critical to the success of anyone, whether it's Kathy or whether it's I. They're there for a reason. And that's what I want to do. I've done this before. I've found teams, worked with teams, and made very successful teams out of some that were kind of mediocre at the time. When they're dealing with regulatory compliance and they're dealing with a couple $1 million budgets at all times in the contracts, it's very critical. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is, why do you believe you are the best candidate for Shasta County Clerk?
I go back to my election integrity work and things that were documented, things that were observed, things that should not happen as far as election code says. We've had some discussions. We also had a recent problem with a document that was sent to me, and I did not want to sign that. I respectfully declined, as did I ask that all my election integrity folks did not sign. Kathy said, okay, fine, she understood and went with it, but those are disagreements that we have, and that happens to every one of us. Let's be honest. We all have minor disagreements at any point. I like to say that we're professional friends, okay? And I think that's very critical. You maintain a professional relationship at all times. So that's all I'm going to leave at this point, okay?
Okay, thank you very much. Why do you think you're the best candidate for Shasta County Clerk?
In a word, experience. My record is one that's proven. I have conducted 37 elections here in Shasta County without any major problems. We've definitely had issues here and there, but never with tabulation, never with ballot counting, and never with the results. In 2012, we did a recount where we hand counted over 26,000 ballots for city council here in Reading. And the winner was only 11 votes ahead, and they were unseating. It was Gary Catt. He was unseating Dick Dickerson, who was a longtime incumbent here in Shasta County. And so some of Mr. Dickerson's supporters came in and paid for a recount. And we had more people watching us count than we had counters. So we had teams of people counting. We hand counted all those ballots. And at the end of the day, the results went from 11 votes ahead to 9 votes ahead. So the winner was still the winner. Gary served on the city council, and Mr. Dickerson retired.
Thank you. We're getting ready to close up. I know that there are some questions I haven't answered. I didn't think that they were appropriate under the circumstances. So I always like to ask a sort of, guess what question. Who are your favorite authors, and what books do you like to read? I could ask you my normal, which is who is your hero? You want to pick that one?
No. You know,
No. Who are your favorite authors? What do you?
I actually, in the last 5 years, I have probably read only the books assigned.
We are in a library.
I know.
I
My mother
just
was a
want you to know
librarian.
that
It's terrible, but
today we're in a library here.
work has been a little consuming. What I was going to say is the only thing I've been reading is the stuff that is assigned for my book club at church. So those are the books I've been reading. But the last thing I read for entertainment was Madeleine Engel's A Wrinkle in Time. That's the last kind of fiction thing I read for myself, which is really kind of a youth YA, right? Young adult fiction. But science fiction is what I like to read when I when I retire eventually. Yeah.
Okay. Bob?
Sorry, ladies, it's not romance novels. It's Jack Reacher. I've got all the books electronically downloaded. I'm halfway through them right now. And then guess what? I got a little bit busy. I've been busy for some time. And if it wasn't election integrity, it's now with the campaign. But you know what? Those things will still be there when I get a breath and I can go back to work. But anyway, that's what I'm doing.
Thank you. Thank you. So you can sit down, and I'm going to let Kathy go first. Kathy, we're going to give you 3 minutes to do a closing. Whatever you need to share with us that you haven't had a chance to share so far.
I love this community. I've lived here since the 1990s. I have 5 children that all live here. I'm raising my almost 5-year-old granddaughter here. I'm devoted to this town and this county. I feel like it's incredibly important to preserve the system that we have worked for almost 2 decades to build within the department. We have an amazing team of folks who take this work just as seriously as I do, and I'm very proud of them and the work that they do. I could go on, but I think that's good.
You
I
have
think
a
I'm
few
good.
more minutes.
I'm happy to answer questions afterwards.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much an open book.
Thank you. Bob?
I come to you tonight as an outsider. I've been up in Shasta County for 5 years. Okay. That said, I started at 18 years old in the power plants and as a laborer and ended up running and building power plants. That doesn't come easy. It took a lot of study, a lot of training, and a lot of time. I would get my job offers before I even applied. I walked home one day on a Friday night and Saturday morning, FedEx is the front door of the job offer for a plant manager job to build a new power plant. That's what happens with my history in my world. Does that happen every day? No. But that happens because of reputation and skills. And that's what I offer to bring to the county clerk's office here. I believe honestly that we're never going to be perfect, but we're going to do everything we can according to the law and to our best of our ability. And I want to develop a really strong team. She has a team that's very, very good. It works well with her. That's great. I'm looking for what can we do to make things better, what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong, and asking people for their information. Kathy and I know, I told her earlier tonight, when I point fingers at somebody, you didn't do this, there's 3 fingers pointing back at me too. Why did that happen? Did I not communicate effectively? Did you not listen to me? What happened? That's how I make effective teams. And I know I can do something like that with the clerk's office too, with your help. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's give these folks a big hand. It is really hard to sit up here and answer these questions, you know, that don't make sense and they don't go in the right order, and so I think you all did a great job. And I just appreciate you being here. Couple things before we close up. I want you to know that we do have other candidate forums coming. Most of you know about that. Tomorrow we have Shasta Board of Supervisors District 1, 5:30 here. The doors will open at 5 o'clock. Okay? Then we have the Shasta County Sheriff and Coroner also here, 6:45 on Monday, the 9th. The doors will open at 6:15. And part of this is because often there's somebody else using the library room before we are here, so we need time to get set up. And then finally, we have the Shasta County District Attorney scheduled for May 12th, which is next Thursday, and that will be at 6:30 at the Riverfront Playhouse. Something new and different for you to do, another room. So want you to know that. And then on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I really want to thank you for your effort to become an educated voter, to hear all the things that you wanted to know, or to learn what you don't know so that you can go find out. I mean, it is really important that people are educated before they vote. You know, I always dread election system, the election season, because people call me up, like my little sister, you know, who's 70 years old, and she says, "Susan, who shall I vote for?" And I go, "Get out your book, lady." You know, so make up your own mind, educate yourself. You know, go to people's websites. Many people register on Voters Edge, which is the League of Women Voters website. You can find out some information about folks there. You were on there. Were you on there, Brian? No, Judy was on there. Brian was not on there. But you should get on there. Go to Voters Edge, Brian. Okay. Go to Voters Edge. Go to Voters Edge. Because it's another place where people go to get information, to learn who you are, what you do, how you do it. All right? Thank you for coming. Our candidates will be here. Please vote.